Yes, President Cyril Ramaphosa has paid a working visit to Mozambique's President Filipe Nyusi. He met troops from the Southern African Development Community mission in Mozambique for the first time as the region scrambles to find funds for a 6-month extension of the mission. According to SADC's Brigadier Dumisani Nzinge, many people are deserting the ranks of the Islamic insurgency in Cabo Delgado as the military pressure gains strength. A U.S. raid in Syria ended with the death of the leader of the Islamic State, but experts are still not satisfied with the progress against violent extremists in Africa and Mozambique. Joining us to elaborate is security consultant Jasmine Opperman. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we talk about what's really happening in Mozambique, let's talk about the notable ties between South Africa and Mozambique after we know that President Cyril Ramaphosa went there by invitation from President Filipe Nyusi to commemorate the assassination of the Frelimo's founding president, but also going in his capacity as SADC chairperson.
Good morning and morning to your viewers. I think the visit is important. I think we do know that the diplomatic relations has not always been that warm and well received by Mozambique, taking into consideration the Renamo history, and that we have seen the appointment of an ambassador with a military background, clearly aimed at strengthening military alliances between the two countries. But the diplomatic relation between South Africa and Mozambique improving, would I say that it's sound? No, I think there's still a lot of hesitation, a lot of standing back and watching, which makes it extremely difficult in Cabo Delgado, where you have other forces and Rwanda at play as well.
Rwanda deployed its defense force in Mozambique about 2 months ago. And we know that just last month, SADC met to extend the deployment of troops, which began in July of 2021. Where does it now place the strategy in battling Islamic insurgents in Mozambique?
The problem lies not in how many boots you have on the ground, although that is important. The problem lies at the coordination and the intelligence sharing, whereas Rwanda tends to be proactive and they're well trained. They have a very fixed area. They have the Afungi corridor, which makes it easier for their roughly 2,500 soldiers. For SADC and for SAMEN, the forces in Mozambique, they have a vast area to cover with, I would say, if we're lucky, 1,300 soldiers, of which South Africa roughly stands at 600, in a highly difficult battlefield area. And the lack of intelligence simply means that they cannot be proactive and they're confined to the main access routes. Sad to say to the viewers, the insurgency has not been beaten back. The momentum has not been broken. To the contrary, if I look at January with the incidents, it is just getting worse.
Let's talk a little bit about the friction between the two deployments, because there appears to be some, because there is no proper coordination between the two.
And that has been a concern from the beginning. That if we are going to have the militarization of Cabo Delgado, which we all expected, which now China is joining, and the AU is coming into play, militarization itself is necessary to create stability. But the problem is if you don't have effective cooperation between the different forces, you are having groups of soldiers running in different directions, which is the ideal environment for the insurgents to execute small attacks. I mean, it took a small group of 10 to 15 to run around for 2 weeks, create mayhem before actually some action could have effectively been taken. And here is the core of the problem. It is not the soldiers. They need our support. They're in a difficult situation. Someone is being viced between Rwanda and the insurgents. But if there's not a political will to bring these forces together, I'm afraid for generations to come, this insurgency will be gaining and will be going on.
What then does the AU's Peace and Security Council, what role does it play here, especially considering the funding issues that are also a major challenge?
I think the AU plays a crucial role. We have seen in their recent meeting and their briefing and their note that they have released on the 31st of January that they admit and say that there needs to be support for the SAMEM forces that are going to approach both the EU and China, and they're also going to use the continental logistics base in Douala, Cameroon, to provide support, logistical requirements, intelligence coordination, that will enhance SADC's capability. The question then comes up for the EU, already moving closer to Rwanda. Where is this going to leave SAMEM in Mozambique? Because we need to know that Iraqification is at play. Foreign interests are at play. And I do hope SAMEM is not going to get caught up in this political battle, which is not always so visible, that is playing out. But what is clear is that funding is needed, logistics is needed, and a political will is needed, and decisive decision-making is needed. SADC is not going to be for only another 6 months. We need a long-term plan of 1 to 2 years.
As you make mention of Rwanda and the long-term plan here, let's talk a little bit about the strategies. I mean, we make mention of the 2 deployments having a bit of friction. And what would the focus be for the 2 deployments when it comes to creating a safe zone?
For Rwanda, it is obvious by now, and it has been obvious from the beginning, that the Afungi LNG site is their primary goal. We're going back to Total, we're going back to France. If you take it, takes about $20 million to keep them there a month. Rwanda, they do not have the finances for that. Now they say they're going to stay indefinitely. Somewhere money is going to come from. The EU, most likely, and France lobbyists will go full out to secure their Total interest. And we already see Total moving closer to Rwanda with LNG agreements and cooperation. But securing a Fungi corridor means nothing if you don't have the outside districts also secured, because these small cells have breached the Afungi security corridor on 2 occasions now that I'm aware of. Irrespective of this vast deployment, it takes 1 bullet, 1 incident, if Total should return. And when they're going to withdraw this time, it will be permanent. There needs to be realization that all 17 districts in Cabo Delgado has to gain a sustained level of stability. There's an interdependence beyond political agendas. But it's idealistic. Political agendas always determine. And sadly, always handcuff soldiers on the ground. The mistrust with the Mozambican security forces is running high because of information leaks. That was said to me directly. We do not trust, we don't want to be deployed with them. And herein lies the complex of countering the insurgency.
And what about the killing of the ISIS leader? How much of an impact does this have now on the mission?
Of course, Ashi's death, interestingly enough, close to where Baghdadi was killed, at a senior level, it will have an impact on the Islamic State. But keep in mind where we stand with the Islamic State now. They have broken up, decentralized, where they are allowing local leaders and local leadership to take care of themselves, to provide for themselves, initiate attacks themselves, organize. In the Middle East, it is going to have a much more dire impact, but no leader has ever been taken out in a jihadist extremist group with effect and success. They're not just established ways. They're not being personalized. Al-Baghdadi was a prominent leader since 2010, and yet he came and he went, and ISIS survived. I expect the same. In Africa, I do not foresee any variation at play. These groups will continue as they've been allowed since the demise of al-Baghdadi. Let us not be fooled by a leader being killed. The idea is alive and kicking, and we need to kill that, and a bullet will not do it.
With the little coordination between the two deployments and President Cyril Ramaphosa's visit in his capacity as president and SADC chairperson, how will we then begin to gauge the impact of his visit when it comes to ironing out the frictions Mozambique is having with SADC as well as within Mozambique itself?
We're walking into Maputo politics now, let me be honest with you. I think the visit is important. I think it's good that he visited the Summon forces. It's a good morale boost. But we need more than words. We need action. And that is what is lacking. Rwanda and Mozambique has come to certain agreements that's been kept under the carpet. What are those agreements? Rwanda and President Kagame is a propagandist par excellence. And they will use this to strengthen, he will use this to strengthen his position. Will the Mozambican government step up to the plate, move beyond the propaganda statements on so-called victories and so-called masterminds be killed, and enforce a level of cooperation and coordination? Remember, Tanzania is also coming into play. We have seen bilateral meetings. We need more than a visit. We need bilateral engagements addressing the core problems. Our soldiers are left to their own devices. I am worried.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time and analysis. Senior risk analyst Jasmine Opperman speaking about President Cyril Ramaphosa's visit to Mozambique and the dynamics at play when it comes to the missions and deployments within the country.